Good morning. I thought I was going to be real late, but I'm not real late. Good morning, y'all. I'm glad to see you. This is our Thursday morning live stream conversation, the Texas 10. How's everybody? I hope you're having a good Thursday. Hey, Susie, I love you. Hey, Renee, I love you. Hey, Susan. Oh, you're from Houston. Oh, we're going to talk about Houston this morning. We're going to talk about Houston this morning. Y'all got some stuff going on in Houston. Thank y'all for being here. I am Dorothy Burton. This is, I go through every Thursday morning, the Texas 10, and we look at the 10 stories that's not necessarily the biggest headlines. I look for the stories that tell us what's best happening in Texas and how that impacts you, how it impacts me, and where we see the state going. Okay, so let's get started with number 10. Number 10 is the $1 billion education savings account program. What is that? That is the voucher program, and that kicks off this fall. And the state is about to spend $1 billion on private school vouchers. The response was so overwhelming that there's actually a waiting list, and I had to go back and look at what exactly were the qualifications. And students with disabilities from households earning no more than $500,000 of the federal poverty level are eligible. Students from households where no more than 200% of the federal poverty level are eligible. And other lower and middle income students and students that have been previously in public schools. So it goes to students with the first dibs goes to students who are low income, students who have been in public schools before, students who meet the poverty level, and students with disabilities. Now, I said there was an overwhelming response to this, and the Texas has $1 billion to spend on this, $1 billion that they took away from public schools. Okay, so private schools students get $10,000, $10,474. Students with disabilities get up to under under $30,000. I mean, students with disabilities may receive up to $30,000. Students already in private schools get $10,474. These are tax dollars. I mean, this is just free money. No. It's not free money. It's our money. It's tax money. And non-private school participants can receive up to $2,000. So $2,000 is not going to go very far, but we'll see. And we'll see what families are actually awarded these funds, because private schools still get to decide what students they are going to take. And we call that cherry picking back when we were talking about this back in the day. And that's how a number of us became acquainted with James Talarico, because he was in that fight with us. Houston. Let's talk about Houston. That was number 10. Number 9, Houston's minority contracting program is ruled unconstitutional. I don't know where Charles O'Neill is, and I don't know Charles O'Neill with the Black Chamber, National Black Chamber, and my friend Charles over there with the Arlington Black Chamber. What happened in Houston, it's going to be statewide. Their minority contracting got ruled unconstitutional. A federal judge struck it down, saying that it was race conscious contracting, and the ruling could have a domino effect all across Texas. It began in Houston. So, Charles O'Neill, Black Chamber, Charles over there in Arlington Black Chamber. Yeah. So now, since it was struck down in Houston, Houston has to decide whether to appeal or whether to redesign their program, or to let the federal court decision stand. So if they let it stand, then minority contracting is in serious, serious trouble. We're starting Houston. Depending on what Houston does, if Houston appeals it, or if they redesign the program, and what that redesign look like, who would know? In this administration environment, what that redesign would look like. And even if they did redesign it, would it still pass muster in the courts? And look for that to spread across Texas, particularly minority contractors with cities and states, and certainly private and federal. It got struck down in Houston. So we'll see. Number eight. I'm talking a lot about public schools today, because there's no more important issue that's happening in Texas today than with our public schools. And if you follow me on Substack, if you follow me on Facebook, my whole ecosystem now of communicating. I always say I'm a better writer than I am a speaker. So I do a lot of this on Substack. And I've talked a lot about it on Substack. I have a collection of 7 essays on Texas public schools, and they are free to everybody who wants to read them. And I talk about the dismantling of public schools. I talked about how we got here, and where we are heading. And where we are heading is the dismantling of public school systems in Texas. That's no hyperbole, is no exaggeration. I took a lot of time, and I looked at a number of resources, and I went back and looked at decisions made by our legislature and our governor. And it's no conclusion that I came to. I just followed the evidence, and I followed the information, and the evidence and the information led to that collection of 7 essays. Everything from the curriculum down to the classroom, what is being required of teachers now, and how teachers are in jeopardy of losing the national certification, because the national organization that certifies teachers get was tied to their pay. Texas is now saying that it does not comply with DEI. So that's one of the essays. I have, I think, 2 essays on teachers. Y'all, it's systemic. It's systemic, and it has been planned for a very long time. So number 8, Texas students return to a significantly different classroom this year. Again in Houston. I go back to Houston. We start with Houston, I'm going broader. Because Houston had 12 schools to close or consolidate, I think in the month of June alone. And that's like, that hadn't been so in 2 decades, in 20 years. And they had 12 schools to close or consolidate. Houston. Houston also is implementing the Bluebonnet curriculum. Y'all have heard me talk about the Bluebonnet curriculum. The Bluebonnet curriculum is the Bible curriculum. It's not it's the first one. The second one that's going to roll out is going to be in 2030. But the Bluebonnet Bible curriculum is tied to funding. See, Greg Abbott and them, they are slick. They are slick, and they are evil. I don't know anywhere to put it. My coach would tell me, don't get on the air and say Greg Abbott is evil. I hope he ain't listening, because I sure did say it. The man is evil. I need to go back to class. Okay. So they have implemented this Bluebonnet curriculum. The Bluebonnet curriculum is tied to money. The state passed the Bluebonnet religious curriculum. However, the state said, y'all don't have to implement this, school districts, but if you do, we will give you $60 extra for every student if you implement the Bluebonnet curriculum. Now, they have already cut funding. See what I'm saying? See why this is diabolical? They cut the funding because, and in order to implement this Christian right Bible curriculum, they are using money that should have already been allocated to schools as the carrot. You don't have to adopt this, school districts, but if you do, we'll give you $60 per student. Houston implemented it, and Houston stands to gain and lose. Because see, Houston is under a state appointed board. I think there are 3 school districts that are under state appointed board: Austin, Fort Worth, and Houston. See where we're going? So with the performance-based pay, the Bluebonnet curriculum, the new education system, the vouchers, it's like a water hose. That's going to open up when school starts. And my fear is that a number of parents and students, and I didn't even talk about, because it did not make the top 10, but there's a story again out of Houston, having to do with curriculum and one of their programs being struck down, the Talented and Gifted program. A lot of kids are going to be returning to school thinking, and their parents are going to be thinking that they are in this Talented and Gifted program. TEA struck it down, and that was also in Houston. Like I said, it didn't make the list, but it almost, but it ties into this whole education thing. Not Young Houston, Beaumont. And the reason why I didn't include it, because it wasn't statewide yet, and Beaumont is not that big of a deal, but it was struck down because it did not comply with TEA. Students who are going into that Talented and Gifted program. It was Beaumont, not Houston. I got so much in my head. So that's going on. And with the Bluebonnet and with the state appointed boards overseeing these school districts, especially Houston, Fort Worth, and Austin, it's going to be a very different scenario. Very different scenario. It's like the state is holding these school districts hostage on the 10 Commandments. Oh, that's another thing. The 10 Commandments now have to be, with the beginning of this school year, the 10 Commandments have to be hung in schools. Let me show you this clip. See, this is why, although it's now coming into the news and coming into a lot of people's orbit now, a number of us who support James Talarico didn't just get on board with James Talarico. And James Talarico just didn't start fighting these fights. We've been fighting this fight. We've been fighting Greg Abbott, I know, 2-3 years on this curriculum, on this Bluebonnet, on this religious curriculum. Now, don't me wrong. I'm a Christ follower. I love God. I do. But I just think it's a travesty that we got this Christian nationalism program now taking over our public schools. Let me show you a clip. Let me see if I can find it. Let me. And the thing about it, y'all, they are so hypocritical. They are so hypocritical. And that's why James Talarico is going to tear them apart. Because James Talarico doesn't come at you. He comes at the Christian nationalists with Christianity. And they don't like it. And he comes at them very calm. He doesn't curse. He doesn't look for viral moments to go viral. Opie just put it out there. He just puts it out there as a seminarian would and could, as only a seminarian can. Let me show y'all. Now I'm gonna go back and show you how James Talarico. Let me show you while we're talking about this school stuff. It's been a battle. It's been a battle. Let's start with this one.
The 4th commandment.
Keep the Sabbath.
Part of keeping the Sabbath holy is not working on the Sabbath.
That is, yeah.
What day is the Jewish Sabbath?
It is on Saturday.
And what day is it today?
It is Saturday. Here we are.
The Christian Sabbath is what day?
Sunday, in honor of the day that Jesus rose from the dead.
And we're scheduled to give this bill a final vote on what day of the week?
It's ironic, isn't it?
Would you be willing to postpone your bill so that we're not breaking the 10 Commandments by working on the Jewish or Christian Sabbath?
I love that you said that, because
you're saying that you'd rather tell people to follow the 10 Commandments than follow it yourself?
I would have rather have had this bill passed the other day when it was time.
We as a legislature are about to force every teacher in the state to post the 10 Commandments in their classrooms.
If they are donated.
Do members of the Texas legislature follow the 10 Commandments?
So again, this bill is about honoring our historical, educational, and judicial heritage with the displaying of the Ten Commandments.
The ninth commandment is thou shalt not bear false witness. Are you aware of any legislators who have lied about anything?
That is, there might be one coming up in a minute. If you keep talking, we'll see.
The seventh commandment is thou shalt not commit adultery.
Yes.
Do you think that members of the legislature should focus more on trying to follow the Ten Commandments rather than telling others to follow them?
I am, it is incumbent on all of us to follow God's law.
What is the fourth?
Yeah, that's why. That's why they look. That's why they want to cut down Opie every chance they get. That's why they want to talk about he's weird. He's all of this. Opie's not weird. Opie knows exactly what he's talking about. Opie knows exactly what the scheme is, and Opie knows the word of God. As a seminarian, I know you're not going to graduate seminary without studying all 66 books of the Bible. The Bible is the last book you want to see once you get to the end of seminary. You're going to know it. You're going to know it, or you're going to die first. So when he comes back to them in a calm way, and he comes back to them with truth, it frustrates them. It makes them look bad. It makes them look like the hypocrites that they are. And so they lash out at him. He's not trying to do that. He wasn't trying. When we were fighting this fight and he was fighting this, and he lost it. He lost that fight. We lost that fight because now here we are. It's time to implement what he was talking about. And the Ten Commandments, that's part of it. It is mandated now. It is mandated that every public school will have the Ten Commandments hanging up in the school if they are donated. Now, Ken Paxton, listen, when I broke probably every commandment there is, he last month he was going after school districts who did not comply, or he thought did not comply with hanging the Ten Commandments. He even came after DISD, Dallas Independent School District, was one of the ones I think got a letter from him. But DISD shot back and say, hey, ain't nobody offered us no 10 commandments to hang up. So if nobody offers it, we're not going out and buying our money. You already ain't giving us no money. Okay. So we're not going to do that. So the stipulation with these 10 commandments is this. If an organization, and they even have it down to the size, if an organization offers a school district copies of the 10 commandments, the law, y'all, the law that was passed that you saw James Talarico speaking against, the law says that a Texas school district cannot accept the 10 commandments from an organization that offers. And Greg Abbott has said that if a school district rejects copies of the 10 commandments offered to their schools, that those school districts are going to be, in essence, sued. That's now the law in Texas. So if you go to a school and if you don't see the 10 commandments, that means that nobody has offered them to that school district. It doesn't mean that the school district isn't abiding by the law. The school district is just not going to spend their money and go out and buy copies of the 10 commandments and hang them. And see, they were very slick in that too. You see. Schools, if nobody offers them, schools don't have to hang them. But what are you willing to bet that given the deep-seated Christian nationalism here in Texas, and given the deep pockets of so many here in Texas, and given the prevalence of white Christian nationalism here in Texas, there are going to be oil men, businessmen, organizations, you can just about bet your bottom dollar that's going to offer school districts the 10 commandments. and the school districts cannot say no. So this school year, parents and teachers, is a very different look, because those things that we were fighting against, the Christian counselors, the time away for prayer time, kids can take now 5 hours out of the school week to say they're going for a religious activity, and the school district cannot count those students as absent. And those students get 5 hours. Yeah. So all of that, and with the teacher, the new requirements on teachers, the new religious requirements on teachers, and then come 2030. See, let me tell you about the Republicans, as I used to be one for 40 years. They plan for decades and decades out. So the Bluebonnet and the Ten Commandments and the chaplains, if the Christian chaplains replacing school counselors, if school districts approve that, all of that is happening this school year. In 2030 is when the other Bible curriculum take place, the one that wall builders David Barton and the school board just passed last month. That's the most intensive one. That is in 2030. So if y'all walk with me through the pattern here of why, and Texas is a bellwether. I said that yesterday on a podcast. Texas is a bellwether. Texas sets the example in many cases. So this year is the Bluebonnet and the Ten Commandments and the private school vouchers. That's this year. You know, legislature meets every 2 years. They've already planned for 2030. So the students that are left in 2030, the students that this $1 billion will not cover, or for whatever reason they don't qualify, the students that are left in the dismantled public schools, they're going to be taught this curriculum. And then come 2030, the students that are still left in public schools, they're going to get this more intensive Bible curriculum that teachers must teach. It doesn't matter if those teachers are Jewish. It doesn't matter if those teachers are Baha'i. It doesn't matter if those teachers are Muslim. It doesn't matter if those teachers are no faith at all. Those teachers are going to have to teach those Bible lessons, and they are different grades, and that's 2030. That is when it gets more intense. So either way, the state is going to have its way by implementing its version of Christianity in public schools, beginning this year with Bluebonnet. Who's left? They're going to get it too, even more intense. So their goal is to indoctrinate. Their goal is to make the school system a religious school system, even though it's public. So if you go to a private school, if you're eligible to get the voucher and you go to a private Christian school, cool, they get what they want. Those students that are left, they have to get, if the school district wants the money, they're going to have to implement Bluebonnet. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this? So either they get to go off to a Christian school, or if they stay in public school, since the state is starving school districts, and they're saying to you, okay, we have this Christian curriculum that you can implement. We will give you $60 a student if you implement this curriculum. What school district that's starving for money, particularly in urban areas, even in rural areas now? What school district is going to turn that down? So the students are going off to the Christian schools. Those students that are left, the public school system accepts the state's offer and implement the Bluebonnet curriculum, Christian curriculum. Then those students that are left, they're going to get the Christianity too. They're going to get the religion too. And then we'll see how far this $1 billion goes, because it was an overwhelming response. We will see if the legislature in the next session continues to fund this. And if they continue to fund this, it's going to continue to take funding away from public schools, giving this money to opportunity to go to private Christian schools, and the students that are left, They're just not going to get a public education. They're going to get the Christian education too. They're just not going to get it in the private school. So if you go, you get the Christianity, their brand of Christian education. And if you stay, you get their brand of Christian education. But either way, these kids in Texas are going to be indoctrinated into this flawed, and I can say that as a seminarian, a former seminarian, a graduate of seminary, because I've seen it. I've seen it. And that's why they had to send Bluebonnet back, because Bluebonnet had so many errors. They did not get respected theologians to help them put this curriculum together. They got people like David Barton. Now, David Barton, I've told y'all about David Barton. They had to pull David Barton's book. Thomas Nelson had to pull his book because there was so many errors in it. But this is the man who is now even helping Donald Trump dismantle the Smithsonian, saying that slavery wasn't bad and all this kind of stuff. That's who David Barton is. David Barton helped Greg Abbott and the legislature do this. So I hate to spend so much time here because that's not the number one story, but it is the most important story in Texas right now, next to what we're going to get to, these data centers. But this right here, because it impacts the future, y'all, and it shapes and forms the minds of kids who have no choice but to sit in these classrooms and listen to their version of Christianity being taught in a curriculum that they and their right-wing consultants put together. So that's why James Talarico, as a seminarian, as a pastor, stood there flat-footed and interrogated that woman, because he knows, I know, and we want y'all to know, especially parents who aren't paying any attention, what this means. Let's look at another one real quick. Let's see. Let me share another one with you, because people who have problems with James Talarico, and I'm gonna say this too. I'm gonna say it later. But this boy has been fighting this fight a long time. He been in the trenches a long time. When he tell you he been in the trenches with these people, he ain't lying. When he tell you he's gone up against these billionaires, he ain't lying. Because they want to totally turn the state and turn our school district into what they want it to be. Let's look at another one real quick. Let's look at this one. This is the one we're talking about, the counselors.
Texas, you have to have a master's degree. Does your bill require chaplains to have a master's degree?
No.
To be a school counselor in Texas, you have to teach in a classroom for 2 years. Does your bill require a chaplain to teach in a classroom for 2 years?
No, sir.
Does your bill specify any qualifications for chaplains serving in our schools?
I don't think there's any specific qualifications.
Does your bill define what a chaplain is?
I believe it does. Does the bill? I'm looking at it. I mean, it's chaplains are defined in many areas of our government.
Representative Hefner, are you aware that there are internet services that will ordain a chaplain with just 40 hours of online training?
I'm not advised.
I offered an amendment to the original bill to require these school chaplains to respect the free exercise of religion, and you refused to accept that amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I offered an amendment to require parental consent. Children can meet with a chaplain, and you refused to accept that amendment. Is that correct?
I don't recall all the details of that day.
Okay.
It's been a few days.
So
late nights.
We've discussed the National School Chaplain Association. Do you remember that conversation?
I do not remember. I don't recall.
The National School Chaplain Association testified in favor of the bill, both in the House and the Senate. Have they helped you with this bill at all?
I don't recall. I had input from a lot of different people.
Are you aware that the stated purpose of this organization is to, quote, enhance God's presence by infiltrating the system?
I'm not advised.
Do you know Rocky Malloy? He's their CEO, testified in favor of the bill in the House and the Senate.
I've met Rocky.
Has he worked on this bill at all?
They provided some input.
So are you aware that Rocky Malloy has said chaplains are not professional counselors? Children don't need professional counseling. They just need to be heard.
I'm not familiar with that.
He said he has a phone app that gives instructions on how to pray with students who are suicidal. Do you believe that the answer to kids who are suicidal is for them to pray and not get professional
That has
mental health
nothing to do
counseling?
with this bill.
Rocky Malloy has stated he wants chaplains going in to teachers' classrooms and reviewing every single book available to students. Do you, as the bill author, want chaplains censoring or banning books
No.
in libraries or classrooms? No. Are you familiar that Rocky Malloy describes himself as a former drug smuggling pirate saved by divine intervention?
I'm not aware.
And he's admitted to being convicted of international drug trafficking?
I'm not advised.
The gentleman's time has expired.
So that was the argument that Talarico took to the floor against these Christian counselors. And let me tell you how important that was. It ended up passing. The deal was that Christian counselors, untrained Christian counselors, would replace professionally trained counselors in public schools. Untrained Christian counselors. That's why the line of questioning from Talarico was such as it was, because your kid in these school districts had the option of replacing untrained Christian counselors. Now, nothing would qualify them being Christian except saying they are Christian counselors. Would replace trained professional counselors in these schools, in Texas schools. Now, again, the legislature, y'all, is slick. It made it optional for school districts to accept these untrained Christian counselors to replace professionally trained counselors. School boards had to take affirmative action. The school boards had a date certain to take action on approving whether their school district would replace or allow untrained Christian counselors to replace trained professional counselors. Some school districts did. A number of them did. Don't y'all think I didn't write a letter? I love my school. Listen, I love my school board. And my friend at the time, my good friend, was the chairman of the board. He got a letter from me. Yeah, he did. He'll tell you. Renee tell you. Yeah. He got a letter from me opposing these Christian counselors in Duncanville schools. And if the board didn't take action by a date certain, it was allowed to stand. So school boards that didn't pay attention and didn't take affirmative action, these school districts now can have your child, if your child is Jewish, if your child is of no faith, if your child is Muslim, if your child is whatever, these school districts now can replace trained professional counselors with these Christian counselors. And that's why Talarico was so tough on the legislator who had authored that bill. So that was the compromise. But these counselors are in these schools, and particularly if your school district, your school board is, you may not be necessarily, but if you live in an area where it's a very conservative school board and a very conservative city, you just by bet that they voted to have these Christian counselors replace professional counselors, and that goes into effect too this fall. So a lot of the things that we're talking about today, it's not headline news, but it's very important news because it impacts us and it tells us where Texas is heading. And I say it all the time. I don't tell you what to think. I don't tell you how to think. I just hope that I inspire you to think. because these people are not playing. These people have a definite agenda. Y'all, we on number 7. They go quickly. Number 7 is Ken Paxton. Remember last week I talked about Governor Abbott has made it one of his centerpieces to go after these hospitals and healthcare workers with this birth tourism, that he is determined to criminally prosecute those health professionals who participate in birth tourism. Now, birth tourism is women who come to typically Canada and America right at when they're about to give birth so that their child can be born an American citizen. It's called birth tourism for y'all who aren't familiar with it. Birth tourism. So 2 South Texas hospitals now under Ken Paxton are under investigation, and they deny wrongdoing. But we just talked about this last week, and now Ken Paxton is going after 2 hospitals and investigating hospitals. Now you have to know that anything that Ken Paxton can get press on, he will. That's how he won the primarily over Corning. Other than MAGA was mad at Corning, but that's how he keeps his name out there, because Ken Paxton isn't getting the amount of money at a rate that the big donors gave to Corning. So Ken Paxton uses the power and the visibility of the Texas Attorney General's office to gain free publicity. One of them is the Tampaxing. What they call it, Tampaxton? Because he's going after tampon manufacturers over, dangerous chemicals in tampons now. He's trying to go after that woman's, that female vote that he's losing. So Ken Paxton has taken this on. We talked about it last week, and it made number 7 on the list because this is very real, this birth tourism that Abbott is instituted. We just talked about it last week, and now we have hospitals under investigation, just like Abbott said he would do. That's number 7. Number 6, the debates. 3 Paxton Talarico Senate debates are taking shape, have been proposed. Now, James Talarico has accepted all 3. Ken Paxton has not committed. He said, we are negotiating. Y'all know Ken Paxton don't want to debate Opie. Y'all see how Opie took those 2 legislators apart? Opie ain't playing. Opie is a great debate, and Opie stays on point. He is not emotional. He is calm. He's all of that. So there have been 3. Talarico readily accepted. Okay. Ken Paxton said they are negotiating. Yeah. Number 5. Y'all. I hate to keep talking about this every week. I hate to keep. I've been talking about this, y'all, since last December. Because these people are not going to quit. These people are after our vote. These people are after, if they could cancel the midterm elections, they would cancel the midterm election. But if they can't cancel the midterm election, they are determined to purge as many people off the voting rolls as they can. So the number 5 on the list is this. Greg Abbott. Now, y'all know I ain't going to say it again because my coach will get me. I ain't going to say the man evil. I'm not going to say Greg Abbott is evil, in case you're listening. But Greg Abbott, y'all, is building an election structure outside of the Secretary of State's office. Y'all hear me? The Secretary of State oversees voting, right? We all know that. So Jane Nelson resigned. We know that. And a guy, he appointed a guy that's very well regarded by Democrats and Republicans. He's worked for Democrat and Republican governors, but that's not why this made number 5 on my list. Because what Abbott has done and what Abbott is doing is creating a shadow Secretary of State. See what I mean by that? Because Greg Abbott, to the tune of $275,000, has hired Nate Shazline. Nate Shazline is a former state representative. He has been designated. I want to make sure I get this right. He has hired him to help him with the elections outside of the Secretary of State. You see, the Secretary of State has to be, approved and all that. And the guy they got, I mean, he's a Democrats and Republicans both agree on him. So that's not the issue. We got a Secretary of State. He appointed him, and everybody was saying how surprised they were because Greg Abbott was so fair, in appointing a guy that Democrats and Republicans both like. But Greg Abbott is Greg Abbott. So Greg Abbott has hired former State Representative Nate Shasline to a tune of $275,000 a year to be his what? To be his senior advisor for election integrity. That position didn't even exist. He's paying him $275,000 to be his senior advisor for election integrity. That's outside of the Secretary of State. This is reporting directly to Governor Abbott. His job description gives him broad authority, including policy, program, staff, state agencies. Excuse me. And the thing about it is, Greg Abbott hasn't said a thing. Greg Abbott hasn't said a thing to the press about, okay, so why did you hire this guy to overlap really the duties of the Secretary of State? Greg Abbott is mum on that. This guy is making $275,000 a year as the senior advisor to the governor for election integrity outside of the Secretary of State. So see, what's going to be going on legally, the Secretary of State is going to make sure that everything is legal, above board, all of that, the voter registry, all of that's going to be in line, and all that's going to be in line. But we don't know what Greg Abbott is going to do with this $275,000 hire. This guy makes more than the governor. So why would he do that? Why would he do that? And what authority is he going to have? What authority is he going to have as the advisor for election integrity? And it's interesting that Governor Abbott would hire him at this time. Because remember I told you, the final voting roll is due in August. And our voting rolls have been purged. By the time the state gets them back for the third time, they've already been purged. Those records are going to be purged 4 times. So the governor now appointed the replacement for Jane Nelson, which is cool, which is what you do. But then he goes and hires this other guy to be his elections advisor for $275,000 a year. And that's $275,000 of our tax money. So Greg Abbott ought to be made to tell the taxpayers what he is paying our tax dollars for this shadow Secretary of State that he's paying $275,000 a year that reports only to him, which means that the policies, the programming, the staffing, and all of that, Greg Abbott gets to determine. So it's this shadow Secretary of State position that he's created. And that's why it made number 5 on my list. Because as I looked at it, I go, I wonder what that's going to be about. And if you look at it, if you Google Shasline, Nate, Schatzline, he's a former, as I said, former rep that's now working directly for the governor. So he has, according to what I could find, he has broad authority involving policy, programs, staff, and agencies. If that's the case, then the Secretary of State, the duly appointed, lawfully legal Secretary of State, that's just going to be, that's just going to be the frame. But what's going on behind the scenes is going to be dictated by Governor Abbott's new election senior advisor for election integrity. This guy, not the Secretary of State, this guy. This guy is going to be the guy, the secretary, the actual Secretary of State window dressing. Because the guy that's going to be doing all of Greg Abbott's bidding when it comes to our votes, when it comes to the voter roll, when it comes to voting integrity, when it comes to staffing, when it comes to programming, when it comes to agencies. This is the guy that has all that authority. Not the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State has it on paper. But Greg Abbott's shadow Secretary of State is the guy that's going to have all the power, and is the guy that's going to be helping Greg Abbott, whatever Greg Abbott has up his sleeve, to pull on the voters of the state of Texas. You see, that's the shadow government. That's the shadow Secretary of State. Watch that one. That's why it made number 5 on the list. Y'all, they're not playing. I'm telling you, they are not playing. Number 5, that was number 5. Number 4, I'm going back to this, y'all. I talked about it last week, and it keeps rising. And it seems like, we're in Dallas, Fort Worth, or if you're in Houston, you may think it does not apply to you. But I'm going to tell y'all, let me go back to that. Let me go back to that number 5, y'all. I want you to keep an eye on that shadow Secretary of State, $275,000 a year that Governor Abbott has appointed, that's going to have all authority. He's up to something. It's never been done before, ever, that I ever. So why does he need this elections advisor? And why does he need to pay him more? Why does he need to pay him $275,000? What is he going to be doing for $275,000 a year, y'all? And to hire him this late in the year after the Secretary of State has been appointed. See, this is the kind of things. See, this is how they got this curriculum past us. This is how they got their bluebonnet stuff past us. That's how they do all of this. That's how they get this stuff passed by us. And that's why, when I sat and thought about it, and people really don't know, y'all. People don't know until it's there. Well, people in Texas gonna know, yeah. So keep an eye on that one, because he just didn't hire that man for nothing. And right now it's number 5. As we go on, it probably raise up to number 1, because he there for something. Number 4 is this Midland thing, this Midland ISD suit. I talked about it last week, and I'm talking about it this week because it rose up a little bit. Because, y'all, it goes back to our public schools, and it goes back to the systemic dismantling of our public schools. And why Midland ISD? Because Midland ISD has filed suit against Robin Hood. Now, Robin Hood has stood the test. I think it's been tested 2 or 3 times in the courts, but it stood the test. Robin Hood was implemented back under Ann Richards' administration. It's recapture. It's still called recapture today, but the popular name for it is Robin Hood. It's like take from the rich and give to the poor. It's kind of that concept that the richer school districts will send money to the state. The state will recapture that money and dispense it to the poorer school districts. Midland is oil rich. When I tell you it's oil rich, it is oil rich. The West Texas billionaires live out there. The Bushes were of Midland. Tim Dunn lives in Midland. And while Robin Hood has stood the test of time and has stood court challenges 2 or 3 times before, the legislature made some changes that would make it easier for property-rich school districts to sue to get out of Robin Hood. So why did this rise up? Because this will be the first challenge to Robin Hood under the new rules implemented by the state legislature. See all this? Y'all see how all this stuff is connected? You see how it's connected? Do you see how it's connected? So Midland is saying, okay, we're going to give $83 million this year to the state to redistribute to these poor school districts. And Midland, since it has so much money, because that's where most of the oil in Texas is, in West Texas, Midland says that between Midland says that it has paid $1 billion into recapture Robin Hood since the 2013-2014 school year. And I looked it up to see how would this impact really school districts, poor school districts, rural school districts who don't have as much money, who are the beneficiaries of recapture. How would it benefit them? More than 200 Texas districts now make recapture payments totaling $2.5 billion. Billion dollars. $2.5 billion. Can you imagine if 2.5, if Midland prevails, this will have implications for school districts across the state of Texas. That means that property-rich school districts who have been sending this money to help the poorer school districts won't have to do that anymore. And what does that do? That leaves less money for public schools. Do y'all see the dots connecting here? Robin Hood has been tested before. Nobody paid attention to when the rules changed and when the legislature changed the rule. They knew what they were doing. Would make it easier for property-rich tax districts, which are principally more conservative and located in more conservative areas of Texas, to not have to do that anymore. So if Midland prevails, that's going to take away, and if Midland prevails, it's going to be a domino effect. Just like, remember when I told you about the contracting in Houston? Now that the federal judge has ruled against minority contracting in Houston, and how that's going to have a domino effect, Robin Hood is going to have a domino effect. And this domino effect for Robin Hood is going to be serious, y'all. Coupled with the money that the legislature is already taking away from public schools to give to the private schools in these vouchers. The dismantling of public schools, taking away money from public schools to totally dismantle the public schools. So all of this is related because the goal is to dismantle public schools. But there are a number of moving parts that people don't put together unless you have somebody like me crazy enough to say, wait a minute, this stuff is connected. So yeah. So we will see the Wilkes brothers, they in Cisco, Tim Dunn and Renee and Susie know these people. Y'all should know these people. These are the people when Talarico said that he's fighting against these West Texas billionaires, these are the people he's talking about. While there is no connection to Tim Dunn, although Tim Dunn is in Midland, while there's no connection with Tim Dunn to this Midland ISD school district, you can bet by bet. You just about bet he's behind it. Yeah. It's not that he don't know about it. He's behind it. So West Texas, since it is so rich and oil rich, it's become both a financial center and one of the biggest movers and shakers behind the voucher program. Yeah. School finance. Yeah. So whether other recaptured districts join Midland, we'll wait and see. And I said it last week, and I say it again. I predicted this case is going to go all the way up to the Texas Supreme Court. The Texas Supreme Court is all Republican and all conservative. And if it makes it up to the Texas Supreme Court, the school districts, the property-rich school districts are going to prevail. Now, I know, y'all know I tell y'all stuff before it happened. I know it sounds crazy and off the wall. And then months later or a year later, it comes to pass because I know these people. I mean, it's my lane. I know them. Yeah. So if they prevail, it's going to be a domino effect for others. Poorer school districts, rural school districts, they're not going to get recapture or Robin Hood funds anymore. Number 3, Opie. Talarico has opened a 5-point lead over Paxton. 5 points. That's unheard of in Texas. And that's a statewide poll. Let me see. I think I have let me share this with you. Because that's significant, y'all. While 5 points may not seem like a lot, but in Texas, in going into August, going into Labor Day, and you got a Democrat candidate leading by 5 points over a Republican candidate for the Senate It's a new day. Let's look at this one. Really, let's look at this real quick. Yeah, this explains it better. Wait, let's see. I don't want that one. Let's see.
100 days now until the November election, and a brand new poll shows James Talarico leading Ken Paxton by 5 points among likely voters. Talarico's at 45%, Ken Paxton at 40%. But if you look closer at these numbers here, it's a little more revealing. Talarico has a commanding lead among Latino voters. That's significant because Latino voters swung over towards Republicans and President Trump specifically in the 2024 election. Talarico also leading with independent voters in this state that have traditionally leaned to the right. And Talarico does lead with non-college educated voters. That is significant because Republicans have usually dominated with those folks. Texas Public Opinion Research did this survey in the middle of July. More than 1,000 people were surveyed here. Texas Public Opinion Research, if you don't know this organization, it is widely respected and bills itself as a nonpartisan research initiative, but it is run by a guy named Luke Warford, who is a former candidate and former official with the Texas Democratic Party. These numbers, though, are still similar to a poll put out by the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin back in April. It also showed Talarico leading. Now remember, polls do not predict the outcome of races, but only show a snapshot in time of voters in this state. Less than 100 days now.
Okay, the demographic that Talarico is leading among, that's typically Republican. He is very, very popular among Latino votes. You heard me say Latino votes when typically goes to Republican. Talarico is leading among non-college educated, and the non-college educated is typically Republican, and Talarico is leading among them. And the independent voters, he's leading among them. And one demographic that he didn't talk about that I want to mention is the young voter, because see, I say it all the time, Texas is a young state. The average age of the average Texan is 36. Talarico is 37. You can just about bet that Talarico appeals more to the younger voter than he does than Paxton, being 63. I think he is 64. Appeals to voters, and there are more younger people in Texas that are. The average age is 36. Texas is the second youngest state in the union. So Talarico, if they surveyed that demographic, he would be leading among that demographic too. Yeah. So this is serious. And don't think that the Republicans are not scared. That's number 3. Number 2, y'all, is these data centers. It's these data centers. Now, y'all saw where Willie Nelson got involved in it. But Texas has given, now people are waking up to these data centers. Texas has given them billions of dollars of tax breaks to these data centers. Billions. And I looked it up because I wanted to know how many data centers do we have in Texas. There are 248. Y'all know we have 254 counties. There are almost more data centers in Texas than there are counties. 248. And 138 of that 248 qualify for state sales tax exemption. Hello. 138 of those 248 data centers qualify for state sales tax exemption. This is part of the deal that, he's backing up now. That's part of the deal that Abbott struck in enticing these data centers to come. So I wanted to look up where there are projects, because people are up in arms with these data centers because they take up so much electricity, so much water. And some farmers who have livestock are saying that there are sounds that radiate from these data centers that are killing the livestock. So projects are going on in Dallas, Fort Worth, Plano, Garland, Red Oak, Ellis County, San Antonio, Houston, and Gulf Coast, West Texas, East Texas and rural counties. Henderson, San Angelo, they are literally, y'all, all over the state. And people are just now waking up to this. But this train is way down the road, and now Abbott is finding himself having to backtrack because these rural areas and even Democrat and Republican lawmakers have come together and said, no, we do not want this. So that's number two. Number one is this, that this data center fight now is a left and right Republican and Democrat fight. They have teamed up, and that's something to behold, because you have farmers, you have ranchers, you have property owners, you have rural counties, water advocates, environmentalists are coming together over this issue. The Texas Tribune did a poll, and what they found was 71% of Texas Democrats and 44% of Republicans are showing backlash against these data centers. So these data centers now have opposition from people that you wouldn't think would come together to oppose these data centers. And that's what's gotten the attention of Greg Abbott. But Greg Abbott the state has given these billion-dollar tax breaks to these data centers. So now they're caught in a quagmire. So you have all of these people. Y'all know God works in mysterious ways. What if he, and I'm going to say this because this is the sleeper, but the number one is these data center fights has become a Texas faith and values revolt. Yeah, because faith-based organization, faith-based opponents have joined with people on the left. They have joined with environmentalists. They have joined with rural counties. They have joined with lawmakers, and they are pushing back hard against these data centers in Texas because people have woken up to the truth of what these data centers are doing to their environments. So the number one story in Texas is a data center. If you say data, same thing. Some people say data, some people say data. Tomato, same thing. So the sleeper of the week is data centers. But that's not the sleeper of the week. The sleeper of the week is this. It's now become a Christian fight. A Christian fight. The Texas Tribune did a huge story on this, and it caught my eye as being the sleeper story. Because you have Catholics, you have rural churches, you have evangelical churches, you have Unitarians, you have the religious people coming together with Democratic lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, property owners, water advocates, environmentalists. And what the Christian community people are saying is that this is not being a good steward of the earth that God has given to us, because it takes so much away from water, it takes so much away from the environment, and we're not being good stewards. I invite you to read the story in the Texas Tribune because it is fascinating. I had to read it twice. And this fight is emanating from Hood County. Hood County is west of Fort Worth, I guess. If you've heard of Granbury, that they are leading the charge. This guy said, we live in a Christian county, Hood County, in a Christian city, Granbury, and this is an abomination to God. So it's going to be interesting to see how this fight that started with environment and started with ranchers and started with people who are opposing it because of land use and water use and high electricity costs. Now you have a significant portion, a significant populace that is important to Greg Abbott and the Republicans, and that's the faith community. I'm talking about the religious right faith community and Unitarians and Catholics and Protestants are making this now a religious fight because they say we're not being good stewards of the environment with these data centers. So it's going to be interesting to see if this takes hold in churches and if pastors start preaching about it. And if this becomes a message in the pulpit, because this is the along with the environment, it has become, y'all, a Christian, a care of the earth argument. And that's something that those on the left who are tree huggers, we used to call them tree huggers. I'm sorry, y'all, I ain't trying to insult you, but that's what, that's my conservative background. That's what you call them, tree huggers, but environmentalists. So the environmentalists, the liberals, the conservatives, the Christian right, the Christian left, pastors, churches, people are coming together and making this a church state issue. The data centers. So that's the sleeper. The religious component to this now. Grab a copy of the Texas Tribune. It's online. And I invite you to read the story because it's fascinating. So that is my top 10, y'all, in Texas this week. And the sleeper, who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? That the left and the right would come together to say this is an environmental issue and we're not taking care of the earth. And the right is saying it's a God thing because God has given us stewardship over the earth. And the left are saying it's an environmental thing because we're supposed to take care of the earth. They're saying the same thing, but this message, but they have come together. And it's scaring Greg Abbott and the Republicans. Okay, so that's a sleeper. That has brought people together in Texas. Who'd ever thunk it? All right. So y'all, that's my top 10. Like I say, I don't tell you what to think. I don't tell you how to think. I just hope that I help you to think about things. Because they never sleep. And Texas is a bellwether. And what starts in Texas spreads all over the country. And so that's where we are in our public schools. And God bless you parents, you teachers, this school year as you begin, because this is the beginning of everything that we have talked about, fought against. It begins with this school year. Okay. Yeah. So thank y'all for being here. And for my Substack people, for my Substack subscribers, I put the Texas 10 on my Substack, and I have just a little bit more in depth for paid subscribers, but you don't have to do that. I mean, I ain't, I'm supposed to say all that, but I'll have this on my Substack too. And I'm also going to do a Substack essay today. Y'all don't want to miss. Y'all know I be talking. All I do is tell the truth. Like I said, I don't tell you what to think. I just help you to think, because we need to start thinking, y'all, because we are under assault in this state and in this country, and we cannot afford any longer to not know what's going on and why. But I'm telling y'all, I'm telling you, this crazy woman, she said all this off the wall stuff. It didn't make number 1, it made number 5. But you got to ask yourself, why has Greg Abbott created this shadow Secretary of State position that's going to work only with him on election integrity for the upcoming elections? Y'all stay informed, because they ain't playing and we're not playing either. They're going to do everything they can to derail these elections. And our governor and our lieutenant governor, and if Ken Paxton has his way, they are right in there with it. I want you to look up that story, because although it made number 5, it's an important story, because Greg Abbott is being mum about it. But you got to ask yourself, why is he creating this shadow, which is in essence a shadow Secretary of State, at the tune of $275,000 a year? That does not have to be approved by the legislature, unlike, his other appointment. Why? Yeah. What is this special elections advisor going to do? And he's a former Republican state rep. Yeah. Y'all keep your eyes open. And I will too. Because we're all in this together. And we're going to be informed. And we're going to be accurately informed. And I want to challenge you. If I say anything and if you read anything differently that I have said that's not true, or you need more clarification on, please drop me a DM on Facebook or on Substack. I'm more active on Substack than here, but because I am a better writer than talker. But anyway, that's where we are, y'all. And this whole ecosystem, the YouTube, the Substack, my work is Texas, and my purpose is to inform and to educate. That's it. I'm not here to persuade you or anything like that. God said his people perish for lack of knowledge. And I say it all the time. Lack of knowledge is ignorance. And in the Bible, lack of knowledge translates to ignorance, and it translates, the root of it is darkness. So God says his people perish because of darkness, meaning they are in the dark. Well, we're not going to be in the dark here. We shed light on things. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it so much. If y'all like this kind of commentary, please subscribe, tell your friends. We're here every Thursday morning. We run down the top 10 and we do the sleeper story. And then I give you the resources so that you can go and see them for yourself and scope them out for yourself. Because while we're scrolling on Facebook, while we're scrolling on social media, we see so many things. But we have a governor and we have a government that is hell-bent on turning Texas into what they want Texas turned into. And we just have to keep on it. But I'm telling you, if I had my way, that shadow government, that shadow Secretary of State would have been the number one story, but it's not. It's so much going on, y'all. So those are the top 10. That's the sleeper. And if the Lord say the same, I will see y'all next Thursday. If you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button. If you have comments, please put them in the comment section. I answer everyone, even those that ain't nice. I'm gonna be nice to you if you don't be nice to me. So anyway, y'all, I hope to see you next weekend. Put the comments, ask, challenge me, look for yourself, because y'all, what we're dealing with in this country, we have to be aware. We have to be aware. We have to be aware. So I thank y'all for being here. And if the Lord say the same, I will see you next Thursday. Talk to you soon.